All right, good evening and welcome to the Monday, February 27th meeting of the Green Bay Planning Commission. We will start with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson, present. Vice Chair Jacob Miller.
Present.
Alder Jim Hutchinson.
Present.
Commissioner Cindy Brimmer is excused. Commissioner Darius Daniels.
Present.
Commissioner Ken Ravinsky.
Present.
And Commissioner Michael Peradic.
Not on.
Nana? Okay. Well, he might join us in a minute. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Approval of the agenda for the February 27th, 2023 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Daniels. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to the approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes from the January 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then moving on to regular business, and I also do see that Commissioner Peradic is now present.
I got stars.
All right, regular business, item number 1, reconsideration with possible action on request to establish a planned unit development at 216 South Military Avenue to permit the development of a multiple family residential use submitted by Gorman & Co. applicant, Henry Real Estate Development LLC, property owner.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this item and the next one that will follow are items that were sent back from Cobham Council earlier this month. So next, please. Just a quick refresher. We've all seen this, but just to go ahead and get some background again. This would be the northeast corner of a larger property that is currently owned by Martin. Gorman is looking to go ahead and redevelop this site next. This is the overall larger, approximately 8-acre site itself. Next. There'll be a museum that is required to go ahead and be a part of this. Lot 2 is what we're looking at right now. That's 1.1 acres. Next. Review once again of our future land use right here. This would be a commercial land use. Next. And the zoning is part of a PUD that is existing right now for temporary land uses on the site that allows for some limited light industrial along C3 for the old Shopko building. Next. So, what Gorman has put forward is a 4-story multifamily building with some office space on the first floor. This is rendering from South Military Avenue. Next. Another building rendering looking southeast from the corner of Leo and Military. Next. This is looking over on Leo, looking to the southeast, the back of the building and the surface lot. Next. This is looking on Military northwest at the front of the building. Next. This is looking north from the surface lot of the old Shopko back at the back of the building. Next. These are some materials that are proposed in the PUD itself. By going for the building. Next. This is the proposed layout of the property with the building facing up along Military and Leo and surface parking in the back. That comes to some of our bulk requirements for the PUD, which are noted, which would be some setback issues that are addressed in the PUD, the impervious surface not meeting a C3 standard, and the building height being up along a max of 50 feet, which would be over 35 for a typical R3 building requirement. Next, and another layout view of the property itself. Next. These are some of our the views of the first, second, and third, and fourth floor of the building, noting where common spaces are and individual units. Next. And this is our first floor view here. The yellow area would be the common spaces, your greens and shades of green would be individual residences, and your grays would be service areas for the building itself. Next. So with that, there were some changes that were provided by the petitioner here in the past weeks. We asked both folks who are petitioning here for both Gorman and Martin for their respective PUDs to add any information here, especially what would you envision conceptually for the site here in the future? This is not an actual plan that's being put forward, but it is a concept of what could be done for the site, and this was provided by the folks over at Gorman. With that in mind, the petitioner is here and has prepared some additional information here with PowerPoint. So if you'd like to go ahead and invite them, they can go get some further information here. They did not speak last time at this meeting, not for this particular item. And so they do have some more information to go ahead and provide for this.
I'd make a motion to open the floor.
Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Ravinsky and a second by Commissioner Craddock to open the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, if the petitioner would like to come forward and speak on this.
Thank you very much. My name is Ted Manick. I'm the Wisconsin market president with Gorman and Company. And wanted to start off with the story of how we got here today with this project. Since the last plan commission, there's been a lot of rumors, misconceptions about what happened here because we didn't present at the last plan commission. The whole story began about 2 years ago. I approached the mayor and asked about sites he thought would be a good fit for affordable housing in Green Bay. The mayor directed me to about 5 sites, and I viewed them all. And the location at 216 Military was the clear winner. The reason is it hit on all the WIDA scoring matrix items, and primarily the difference maker for this site was the proximity for amenities. They have a score that's called walkability, or the walkable score, and that is compared to other projects, and this one just shined because of the amenities around. When we approached the Martins about this site, I went over what I thought was a doable vision for the site at the time. That's what John was showing you there. And we kind of talked about this because we thought the townhomes would be a nice transition to the single-family homes on Randall. We got a hard corner here. It's actually a soft corner, but the corner here on Leo and Military is a nice corner as opposed to Shawano and Military, which would be a very hard corner. Leo's a soft street. And then people, which is kind of odd, but people love railroad tracks. And they love, that's not like a super fast moving loud train. It's just something cool to watch. And so we kind of orientated those 2 L-shaped buildings to kind of, capture that. And this would be market rate workforce housing. This was always contemplated as the WIDA deal would be on the corner, and then the market rate workforce would kind of be in the back. And we toyed with this for about 6 months. After we met, the Martins and I met again, and it became very clear that we were dealing in an interest and inflation environment in the economy that did not allow me to build this, and the Martins could not build the warehouse they envisioned. And so we kind of stepped back a little bit, and they said, hey, we would like to explore keeping the Shopco as a warehouse and training facility. We'll give you this parcel here, which is the subject parcel tonight, for the WIDA deal. But we need this to kind of like do our warehousing and our training. And, when the environment changes, we'll look at, doing what we would call phase 1. So phase 2. So phase 1 is the WIDA deal we're talking about tonight. Phase 2 would be the rest of the site. And, if, in terms of the timing on that, if anybody has a crystal ball, as in terms of inflation and interest rates in the future, meet me out back and we'll get rich together, because that's not, no one has a crystal ball as to when that would happen. So the Martins started planning on how they could use that site, and we started preparing a tax credit application to WIDA. It's important to know that the WIDA dynamic of tax credits is extremely competitive. 1 out of every 5 projects gets funded. And it was funded primarily, as we indicated, because of the amenities around. And John, can you flip to the next one? I thought there was one more in there. Keep going. No, we had an amenities site. Oh, there it is. Yep, that's it. Okay. So here's the site here in the red. And there's just a lot of stuff around here. Murphy Park is, one controlled intersection away. Got the hospital there, you got Badger Park there. If you want to walk that pretty long distance over there, there's dental. The big thing is the food store there, Aldi's, is right across the street. And the bus stops are numerous and plentiful around there. And that's really your walkability score right there. We've been doing business for 38 years. We've built about 10,000 units in Wisconsin. This is a dynamite site. This is a site that we look at and we're like, man, this is absolutely what people need and what people want in terms of the location of those amenities. I was going to show you several projects. Now you got to go back, John, sorry. So this is one in Milwaukee. You see that urban edge right there with townhomes on the bottom? That's in Milwaukee. Same thing here. This is in Madison, it's called Generations at Union Corners near East Washington Avenue. This is on East Washington Avenue in Madison. This is called Valor. This is veteran families, which is actually what we're going to hopefully target here as well. And then, was there one more? No, that's it? Okay. Oh, Carbon. So it's also an East Wash deal with Carbon, and we got townhomes. And so it's a very similar kind of bar building deal that we're doing there. Works very, very good. What we plan to do, and you go back to the site plan, maybe, John? The real one, yeah. So it is a tight site. The parking is also, pretty tight here, but the way we wanted to target this project is for disabled individuals. So we've been working, we took points for veterans in this project in terms of the WIDA app, so we're bound to that for 30 years. The affordability I'm about to talk about is a 30-year, commitment that we make to WIDA. It's actually a deed restriction where they have the units that we're going to promise. They've got for 30 years we're obligated under the deed restriction to keep that unit mix. And I was going to tell you that unit mix real quick. So the unit mix right now that they're targeting is we have 48 units. 8 units are 30% of the county median income. That's about $21,000 a year with a rent of $450 a month. There's 8 of those. County median income, I don't know if you know what that means. It's like Brown County median income. There's 8 units at market rate. This is what's brilliant about this WIDA deal. They've actually done something extremely right here. They have 8 units of market rate, so like unrestricted. So, and what's brilliant about that is if you have lower income units and you have higher income units, the management of that has to be at the high level. You have to have rules and regulations where people are, in control. We have to be in control of the building. People worry about police calls or whatever. If you look at all of our property or our records in terms of managing these type of properties, and we have a lot of them, we're at the top of the list. And so here, we're going to be manager for the entire compliance period. So that's an interesting mix, because they have the top of the market, we're unrestricted, and you have 30% units which are, almost a poverty level type of income, but they're people who need the housing the most. And then 16 units at 50% of the county median income, that's about $32,000 a year. Their rent is $800 a year. I'm sorry, I was going to give you the rent of the market rate just so you can compare it. It's $1,250 a month. So this would be $800 a month for the 50%ers, and then 60%ers are $900 a month at $42,000 a year, and that's 16 units. All these rents that are not market rate, they represent 30% of one's income. So that's what affordability is in kind of the HUD definition. If you're paying rent, you're not overburdened if you're paying 30% of your income. So the last time we were together, Michael, you had indicated some opposition to this. You also testified at the Common Council, I think on February 7th, and you indicated 3 things that were necessary for housing. You said that it's got to be quality, it's got to have stability, and it's got to be healthy, right? And I wanted to talk about those things. So quality. So this project is new construction, would compare to any high rent housing going up in the city today in terms of finishes, noise mitigation, building amenities. A simple example of how WIDA affordability works, I think it's important to kind of explain this, and I apologize if we get lost in the weeds, but I'll keep it real up here. So if you have a $10 million project and you have a 9% tax credit, and you guys maybe have heard that term or not, you have a 9% tax credit, what happens is when you complete that building produces 9% of 10 million, that's $900,000 of tax credits every year for 10 years, okay? That's $9 million of tax credits, okay? So say you get awarded this project with WIDA. WIDA gives you a $9 million certificate of tax credits. And they say, go sell that in the open market and see what you can get. And in this day and age, you get about 90 cents. The person who's gonna, the entity that's gonna buy those tax credits, in this case, is Associated Bank. So Associated Banks buys these credits. They don't make a lot of money off them. What they do is they do it so they get credit for lending and investing in a qualified census tract, which is this a lower income census tract. So they take that, and then what happens is you take the $9 million, and just keep the math simple, $9 million from Associated, you apply it to your $10 million of construction costs. So you're building this amazing building, your construction costs are subsidized by the tax credits, so in the end I got $1 million of debt that's left over. So my rents only have to service that $1 million of debt, okay? On a market rate deal, without the tax credits, you'll have a $10 million building, same building you'd build, but you get a $3 million from a rich guy off the street, you get $7 million from a bank, and your rents have to service the 7 and the 3. So that's why, you're gonna have a lot lower rent servicing just that little debt, right? So that's kind of how all of this works. And so that quality housing, it's market rate housing that under the WIDA program is going to be affordable with that sense. Stable housing. So this is an interesting model. It's a 30-year model. So people can never be displaced. I mean, you have people who are evicted for behavioral or money reasons. There's an eviction mediation program that we have with LSS, who's our partner here, Lutheran Social Services. And our aim is not to exclude people. We actually LSS works with all the individuals that apply if they have credit issues, which is our primary reason why people don't get accepted. We work with them for up to 6 months while we're building the building to get people in there who have credit problems. So all of those programs and the liaison of supportive services come from LSS. And our target population is also for disabled individuals. So we have actually designed this building to have 27 units out of our 48 that will be targeted for disabled individuals. So I think Sandy here is with Options for Independent Living. We've worked with them to design these, or to identify these 27 units within our building, and she will refer us disabled individuals and provide services for them along with LSS. So the parking, in sense of the parking, we won't even use the parking that we have there, because most of the people that we are going to have in this building will not have a vehicle. That's why the walkability is so huge in the WIDA scoring matrix. The other thing is health. So again, we're trying to build a community within this building. I mean, Michael, I don't think, and people who were in the Plan Commission last time, they were kind of like aghast that there was no green space in here, that the views here were not ideal because you're looking at a busy street, or you're looking at the top of the building. This type of housing is trying to create a community in and of itself for these individuals. They work with each other in terms of solving their everyday problems, and it's a tight-knit community. And LSS actually will have their office, their Green Bay office, in this building, and they help as a community liaison to all social services for what these people need. I've talked to a lot of people about this project since the Plan Commission last time, and I don't know what I would sign, but I would personally guarantee this would be an amazing community asset for this location in the Green Bay community, and very much needed housing for the people that we're targeting. So, you know, I just, in closing, you know, and I think Sandy wanted to say something, and I've got Dennis saying something really quick, but, you know, I believe that Green Bay, you know, here is at a crossroads with this project. You know, it's an affordable project. You know, we don't want it to fall in the category of not in my backyard. I mean, I think we should promote this type of housing for the people who need it the most. We've got some stakeholders, you know, is it the optimal thing where the Shopko building stays there and we do this in the corner? You know, no, that wasn't our original intent, but down the future, you've got two stakeholders that I think are long-term players that will make that vision possible. And I think that the comprehensive plan over this building actually has the zoning that allows this. It's just the site plan that we're here tonight to kind of discuss. So I hope we can hear some, Sandy, can you hear us, or, I don't know if, Sandy?
Yes, I can.
Sandy, do you want to just say a couple words? All right, sorry.
I would love to.
If you could just state your name and address for the record too, and I'm sorry, sir,
Sure.
if you could give us your address for the record too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
that was
It's
mine.
Ted Matkim, it's 200 North Main Street in Oregon, Wisconsin.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sandy.
Sandy Pop, 1195 Liberty Street, Green Bay. I am the Assistant Director at Options for Independent Living. I'm also a Commissioner on the Green Bay Housing Authority, and I'm also a person with a disability. So I moved to Green Bay 30-some years ago, and housing was scarce for somebody that needed things like a roll-in shower, level entry. So I was very fortunate when I was able to get into an apartment at Fort Howard Apartments, closer to, it's on Chestnut Street. I lived there for about 3-4 years until I was able to rent an apartment that was just built on Western. So I'm very close to where this building would go up. It's a great area to live, and I know there are some things like Ted mentioned that the green space. A lot of the apartments that I've seen going up lately have been the higher end apartments on Gross. I go to Madison once in a while. Some of the apartments that Ted had mentioned, I've seen some of those. There isn't much green space in any of those, and yet they're all very usable, they're accessible, and it's just important in Green Bay for us to have accessible housing. Sitting on the Housing Authority as a commissioner for the years that I have been on there, I have always touted any project coming in to the Green Bay area that the Housing Authority is looking to support. I'm always advocating for accessible housing. We have very few. I work with consumers with disabilities and have seen so many people fall to the wayside, or because they can't find housing that's accessible to them, or rent something that's not, and end up not being really able to utilize that apartment the way it should be. Another thing that I wanted to point out is we have a lot of people that we work with that are in assisted livings and nursing homes that want to transition out into the community. So I worked with somebody recently and had them apply for Section 8, had them do all the right things, but until the new apartments went up on the west end, I think, of Broadway, next to the homeless shelter or close to that, it was 2 years before this person could get out into an accessible apartment. That's how long the wait lists are in Green Bay for accessible apartments. So instead of being in an apartment when she wanted to, she spent our taxpayers' dollars on assisted living. So the cost savings would have been just unbelievable had she been able to get into an accessible apartment when she wanted to move out originally 2 years earlier. So it's things like that that I see, not only as a taxpayer, not only as a person with a disability, or a person that's a commissioner, but also somebody who has tried to find accessible housing throughout the years. It is extremely difficult. So being able to work with Ted, we're looking at making all the apartments universal, visitable, so that people can visit everybody, doors are wide enough, and then to have that many available, accessible apartments is just unbelievably critical. to our housing efforts here for people with disabilities. So I just want to thank you for giving me the time to testify, and wondering if anybody has any questions, please ask.
Thank you, Sandy. I guess, was there anyone else from, was there someone else from?
Just Dennis, real
Go
quick.
ahead.
Good evening. Dennis Hansen, Vice President with Lutheran Social Services, 6737 West Washington Street, Suite 2275, West Dallas 53214. I'm here tonight to represent LSS. We are a partner with Gorman and Company on this development. LSS as an agency has been involved in the affordable housing industry for more than 40 years. I've been with LSS for more than 30. We've worked with Ted and Gorman and Company on several successful developments. 2 of the 4 that Ted showed photos there, we are partners with on the development. And one of the main things that we bring is a service component that Ted referenced. So when we first got involved in tax credit housing, it was twofold. Number one, again, 40-year history of providing affordable housing, and our main avenue for furthering that affordable housing was going away in the HUD Capital Advance program. So we very quickly learned what we could about tax credit housing, met with Ted very early on, and he said one of the main things we need is an empowerment service provider. At the time, I had no idea what that was, but we said we'll figure it out. And what it is essentially is providing services to the tenants of the building, most especially at the time it was for the tenants in the 30% unit, so the lower income tenants, to help them be successful in their tenancy. And part of our 40-year history had been in service coordination through HUD Properties, so we are very familiar with that model. We merged the empowerment service model along with the HUD service model and provided them both, not only to the required 30% units, to everybody in the building is our goal. And so we open our services, our coordination to anyone that lives in the facility. And one of the unique things about this facility will be, as Ted mentioned, we'll have an office there. One of our main services is called Connections. It's the IRIS component of the family care program, serving persons with disabilities and older adults. And that staff for that program will be officed out of this building, so serving not just the community there at the development, but the larger community as a whole. Just for a point of reference locally, I mentioned our long history in service coordination. That includes Ross grants through public housing. So we actually are the service provider for Mason Manor here in Green Bay as well. So with that, I will entertain any questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? Is there anyone else from the public that's wishing to speak on this item? Come on, Leah.
Excuse me, my voice didn't work. Leah Weicker, 425 South Military Avenue. I have met with Ted and also with the Martins on this project. Ted did come up with a lot of good things to address some of our concerns. The green space still isn't so much addressed. I'm one that likes to promote healthy living, including our awesome farmers market over there. And the fact that this has family housing, it still doesn't meet that green space desire that I would have. I think you had brought up at the last minute, this is either going to stand out really well or really not well. I still feel like it's going to be so obvious. Excuse me, there's no other 4-story buildings in that whole area. I think across the street, the BMO Harris is probably the next tallest building, and that one's 2 stories. So this definitely is going to have a presence there. The fact also that it's tied into the rezoning into a warehouse has a lot of concerns for me. Being in the business district, we really don't want to turn it into the other end of military, which is, more the Velp end, where I feel like that's more warehousing, more suitable to warehousing. I do like that LSS is a partner with them. And I wasn't aware of the assorted incomes. I think we were told originally it was just affordable. So I appreciate that effort too. So those are my 2 positives. My negatives, again, the family, that it's 2 and 3 bedrooms, so you definitely are going to have kids there, whether they're disabled parents or not. There will be children. And the green space, and then tied to the rezone would be my 3rd negative. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak on this?
Should I said that I was with Military Avenue Business District?
And you can, yeah,
Okay.
you can add that in right now.
Okay, that's who I'm with.
There we go, okay. And you're representing them with your statements
Correct,
here? Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
Your boards.
All right.
Can I speak?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So Melinda Eck, I'm an alderman of District 11, 1634 Birchwood Drive. I know that there was a full plan for the site, and it does look great. There is no guarantee that's going to happen, because there's two things that I'm concerned about. So if we're rezoning it as industrial, and so David or John might have to answer this, or Stephanie, if it's rezoned and then say, and right now, speaking with Ed Merton, he's not planning to sell the rest of the property. You know, that's not part of his plan. So if it's zoned industrial and then say down the road that maybe he did open up to selling the rest of the property, would it have to be rezoned again to build what Gormans are proposing?
Yes, they would have to, yeah.
Okay, so, there's a concern there. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Alder Eck.
Can I have?
Oh, absolutely.
Alder,
Yes.
if there's any other comments you received from the public in between the last commission meeting and now?
Nothing new since last time.
This is a PUD, but I think that I
It's
mentioned
down
a
the
second.
road, okay, right, down the, in
next
phase
item.
2, but that's, well, no, I mean, that's also a PUD.
I'm not sure where the industrial part comes in.
So that would come into your next item here
Yeah,
for the
that's-
meeting for the overall block.
Got it, okay. All right.
But it was my understanding they're contingent on each other?
Yeah,
They are, in all intents and purposes, they are, yeah. Yeah. They're both bound together as far as
Okay.
as moving forward.
gotcha, okay.
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Praddock, second by Vice Chair Miller to close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any discussion amongst the commission or questions for staff?
I can kick us off. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, probably more than I should have, to be honest. I listened back to the minutes of our discussion, not the first time, but also, the first time and the second time, it's the third time we're hearing this. Listen to council's comments on it, really just trying to understand the opposition to this, and I'm still struggling, to be honest. And I apologize to Ted for not allowing him to speak in the right order. The last meeting, I think it may have changed some opinions, hearing some of the aspects that he provided as well today, so thank you for that. Yeah, I really, this project has been on the defensive for quite a while now, and I think Ted's comments helped kind of put this more back into the offensive part of it, I guess, where, why are we trying to find a way to say no to this when there's so many great things about it? It reminds me of perfect being the enemy of good. We want this exact thing, we have this vision in our mind of what this will be, but look at all the merits of this thing. It's a great project. I've been on plan commissions since 2016. I think I can count on one hand how many times we did tax credits on an apartment. It's very rare, very, very rare. And I just am having a hard time wrapping my head around how we can be against a project that's going to do so much good for so many people that really need it in a town that has a desperate need for housing. So I would love to hear anyone come back and say no to these people, that they can't have this. I'm sorry. I'm a little passionate about housing in this city, so that's all.
I would just add to Vice Chair Miller's comments, and, the last commission meeting, I had a lot of questions around, it's going to stand out, it's going to look different. As I was talking earlier, I did have a chance to go to Madison. I just happened to be in Madison, and I saw the orange and yellow building as I was driving down, and my first thought was, oh, that's a great looking building. And then I looked around like, why does everything else look so bad? Quite honestly. So I appreciate the additional comments. I definitely appreciate the mix of the units, knowing that you'll have the whole spectrum when it comes to affordable housing and then market rates. And I love that 27 or 48 units, I believe, will be designated in that space. So I agree with Vice Chair Miller. I'm just having a hard time understanding, even from hearing from people in the public, the opposition. And I joked earlier, I'm like, as long as it's not a Popeyes, we won't be here. But I'm still trying to, again, find a reason to not support it.
We closed the floor, right?
We did, yes.
I will make a motion to approve.
Oh, a second.
Okay.
Question for staff. The long-term plan, what is it called here? The long-term concept, the last document attached, was added to the agenda item. Can you describe maybe your thought process on why that was added to this item?
Right, so it's added to this item because we asked both parties, knowing that they're tethered together, can we have some more information as to what you can see for the overall site here? Knowing that this item right here isn't in its own vacuum, it still is a part of what's happening on the rest of the block. Gordon provided this information to us as far as what they could envision for the rest of the block itself. They provided it. So it's one of their items. They could see how this apartment complex could then fit into a total redevelopment of the overall area. And as noted, it is not something that we're not taking that into account as far as this PD. It's not that, but thought it was appropriate to go ahead and show that this is where an apartment complex like this could fit into a longer term redevelopment.
There's no way we can work toward that here with this motion, though. There's nothing we can do on the commission to say that's the direction we would like to go, if that was the direction of the commission, and make some sort of contingency that there isn't any.
There isn't, right, yes, the PD itself, there's not a contingency saying it must go in this direction.
Yeah.
We were asking for concepts, what could happen. So with this, you're given a clear plan of what could happen to this 1.1 acres. The next PD, that's what's going to be proposed to go into place for the rest of the property as far as uses and form on that part.
Thank you.
Just for a little clarification, the contingencies that's on this is, looking ahead to the next item, the contingency is in the offer to purchase. Like, how is it tied otherwise, other than that? Like, if we approve this PUD but not the next one?
Oh, right, yeah. As far as, it would then be up to both parties to go ahead and see if they move forward at that point. Initially, this one PUD was put forward to this body here as this one individual item. The rest of the block was asked to go ahead and have a second PUD to go ahead and do the rest of the block, knowing our forms that we had here were going back to the development agreement back in 21, where if you can go ahead and find a good project that could be either residential, mixed use, or commercial in front of the Shopko building itself, then there could be more discussions as to what longer term could happen with the existing PUD for the site itself with the uses. This made that domino go ahead and happen to where now we're considering the rest of the block for longer term and permanent uses beyond the temporary use PUD, which is in place right now for the whole block. So we need to change that PUD, or need to have a new PUD to allow this apartment with office space on the first floor to happen in this specific location. Then the domino came as far as making it more permanent uses for the both C3 and limited LI uses on the rest of the property.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just a quick comment on that, and that's an excellent point, Ken. And obviously, remember, this was a unique proposal when we brought it first for the original time. because obviously it usually can't temporarily zone something. In fact, we still can't temporarily zone something, but we can have a development agreement that says certain things will happen in certain amounts of time. There's a contractual arrangement with the applicant. So that's kind of what we've decided, what we did originally. We would also continue to do that, I think, on the second one, in terms of kind of putting an additional revised development agreement in place that would put a variety of conditions in there that would probably not normally be appropriate for a zoning action, but could be addressed through an agreement in terms of timing, of other sort, pursuits, of providing evidence, of looking at redevelopment opportunities, those types of things. The current development agreement allows for a 3-year existence of the temporary industrial use with 2 1-year extensions, if nothing else happens in front of it. But obviously this, now that there would be a first element of the screening of that site, then we would have to kind of revise that list of things, because one box would be checked in terms of that list. So now we want to take a look at what is the procedure then for continuing that screening, for continuing to evaluate the redevelopment opportunities on the site, whether that's some sort of market analysis, some sort of, again, what exactly that would need to be, still needs to be kind of vetted out on that. But we will certainly be bringing that forward. Ideally would be having that language be coming forward to council at the same time as they have the consideration of the zoning.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question of
Go
staff?
ahead, Alder, yeah.
Because I'm not sure if that's, like, when you're going to vote on this, that I know that there was need for additional parking. That's still the case, right? And does that, like, say they recommend approval, what happens next with that?
Right, so this still has to go back to site plan, or we'll go through the typical site plan review that would happen for any development. As part of the PUD, we do not address lowering the threshold for 60 stalls for a 48 unit on this site. We didn't feel it was appropriate for this, knowing that there are stalls in the immediate area. And with that in mind, it would still need to go through typical site plan review to find a way to either put 60 stalls on or find a way to use within the code to allow for the extra stalls of worth for shared parking, or find alternatives to make that work. Right now, there are 54 stalls, so there needs to be a need to find those remaining 6.
So 60? 60 all done?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I would say this, and I expressed my opposition, as been stated earlier, on the project. I want to vote yes for this project. I want to vote for the housing efforts that are being put forward here. I appreciate the developer's presentation and response to some of the concerns, I really do. But we have listened to the debate, as Vice Chair Miller had said, over the 3 times here. And the concerns continue to come up, and we all know those, and I'm not going to repeat those, of safety, etc. However, I think that the common goal here has been to redevelop that entire place as a long-term strategy rather than a short-term fix with this one parcel. I think that's been admitted by everybody, right? That we've wanted that to take place. That is not what is being proposed, and I understand the rationale and the historic conversation of why that is the way it is today. But I can't in good conscience just vote for one piece of this plan when we have no idea what will occur in the rest of that plan. There's no guarantee to know what type of community that is. It's very nice to think that and dream big and dream about a long-term strategy for that entire area and for the Military Avenue Business District, for that local community, for the neighborhood eventually and the surrounding area that I think people would want to talk about. We talked about the importance or non-importance of green space. Well, in the long-term plan, there's a lot of green space. There's trees, there's buffers, etc. It's creating a nice community neighborhood environment and putting the best foot forward for Green Bay, for these people to have a long-term housing solution. So I can't in good conscience, because of the fact that we don't know what is happening with the rest of the property. I like the concepts of it, I like the communities that it will service, all those types of things that we have talked about, and luckily I think all people on both sides of the aisle have said we want more housing in Green Bay. We want to make sure everyone has accessible and affordable housing in Green Bay. Thankfully, we haven't heard anyone speak against that point to our commission. I think we should be proud of that. But at the same time, if we're looking at a long-term plan rather than a short-term fix, I would like the owners and the city and others involved to go back and find a way we can move toward a longer-term strategy for that entire site, rather than that. And so therefore, I will be voting no today.
Comment. Again, I follow you, sorry. But I've stated my commitment for this project. Approval simply because of the number of units. I think the need for units is so big for this city that kind of overshadows some concerns in my mind. I understand the concerns that were stated at the last commission meeting of safety, and I understand that. There was a business across the street that had kids in the parking lot already. I hear that, it concerns me, but today's presentation, with the fact that there's gonna be help from outside coming into the building, the fact that they did install a room for kids, it doesn't replace a green space, but it is a space for kids to go, especially little kids. I think things are being addressed, and I think the fact this development is urban. It's not rural, it's urban. Green Bay is not used to urban development. We really aren't. This is kind of a spotlight here. We need urban development in this city badly. So I am going to vote yes for this.
You don't, yeah, you don't.
I don't have to say anything.
You
I
don't.
mean- No, I mean, I see both ways. I think that the fact that they qualify for those WIDA credits is huge. I think the fact that LSS has partnered up with them is huge. The fact that the vacancy rate in Green Bay is, I mean, it's ridiculous. I have people coming to me all the time asking if I've got anything available, what's available, what can I find? And I worried a little bit that we were just trying to throw something, just anything, just because we need the housing in Green Bay. But it's hard for me because in Green Bay, the mentality is that block away at Murphy Park, and I realize it's a big intersection. Green Bay mentality, it's hard to walk even a block or two to any destination. If you go to big cities, that's not such a big deal. And a lot of times, if you've got families, you have a car, you're throwing kids in a car and run into a park anyway, because the kids get bored at the parks that they're always at, so. And I think that this could be a catalyst. I mean, I know it looks different than everything else, but I guess I thought that was a benefit. I mean, and I'm not, saying anything, but the buildings on Military, a lot of them are older. And so anything new is gonna stand out. So, I mean, I realize that we don't get that pie in the sky, that phase 2, we don't have a guarantee on that, but perfect is the enemy of good. And it's not, I don't even feel like we're just trying to force it in there, like it's just good enough. This is a good plan. I guess that's my 2 cents. We do have a motion and a second on the floor, so I guess we can go ahead with maybe an individual vote.
And the final thing I would just say that, Madam Chair, and I appreciate your reasoning behind it too. The amount of people that we can serve with this development, yes, that is very true. But if we were to push the parties involved to look toward a bigger development, how many more people could we impact? By putting that pressure, I don't want to say pressure, but putting that challenge forward for that area in the community. So I would just respond to that.
And I would, if I thought that if I could do that and we could do that,
Yeah.
I would love to apply that kind of pressure, but I also don't want to be scaring off developers from the area either. We want to be friendly to developers, and I mean, we're not going to give them everything, but we're also, we want to work with people who want to work within the city too. So, I mean, that's ideal. But, so I guess that's all I have to say on that. Anyone else have their 2 cents before we go ahead with the vote?
Yes, I think that's a good point that you made there about the message that we send. If you look back at, I mean, this is the directive that we gave staff, that city council has also said too, to find us housing, find us affordable housing. They delivered on that. If you look back at the Military Avenue corridor plan from 2011, it's got a whole list of awesome ideas. Goals 10 and goals 11 from the action plan. Goal 10, realize infill development, office and residential uses where appropriate, resulting in additional local and commuter customers and expand the tax base. Goal 11, encourage the development of housing types at which the market demand is currently unmet, such as senior housing, market rate townhomes, and assisted living. City staff delivered exactly what has been told of them by every document possible. And we're finding a way to say no. It blows my mind. I just can't, we can't be sending the message to developers, to everyone else around here that we're not willing to work with them on these type of projects, because it's exactly what we put down on paper that we want to do.
Any further discussion? All right, so we've got a motion by Vice Chair Miller, and a second by Commissioner Daniels. Can you put the approval, or I guess, sorry, everybody else has computers, and it feels very outdated here.
Just this.
Oh, just, oh, that's it. I should have just pulled up a phone, never mind. All right, so that's the motion on the floor. So I guess I don't.
I mean, we took roll call on the last one.
I feel like individual vote is probably best on this one. Okay,
I mean, it's
all right.
also worth noting that when this went to council, it was split and needed to be tiebreakered by the mayor.
Oh,
So
wow, okay.
I think taking a voice vote, or sorry, the roll call vote is best.
Okay, all right. All right, Vice Chair Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Daniels,
Aye.
Commissioner Ravinsky,
Aye.
Commissioner Paradik,
No.
Alder
Hutchison.
Hutchinson.
Aye.
Goodness. And Chair Hansen, aye. All right, so 5 yeas, 1 nay. And then that will go forward then to City Council for, is it March
7th.
March 7th? All right, moving on to then item number 2. Reconsideration with possible action on request to amend a planned unit development at 216 South Military Avenue to amend the boundaries of the PUD submitted by Mao and Associates applicant on behalf of Henry Real Estate Development LLC property owner.
Thank you, Chair. So for this, let's go over this quickly again here. I'll go a bit more in depth because we didn't actually talk about it that much our last meeting and it's been a while. 2 lots, this is lot 1, this is a 7.25 acre part of the property that is not the Gorman PUD. Next. So there's your overall site going from the road tracks north up to Leo. Next. So let's focus on this right here and the different development areas and what they mean for different things. So you happen to see the evolution of this PUD over the course of time since December. As staff, we did split this up into 3 different development areas because we don't have that long-term. This is what will happen. Gorman, you got a site plan, you see it. With this one, it's what's there right now. So we want to put in some different gates to go ahead and put this area to work well with both Gorman, with military, and the neighbors off to the west. So you're going to see the Gorman PUD off in the northeast, development area A, which is the area of the parking lot that is just north of that seasonal area that Shopko had. Development area B being Legal Street West, where the existing liquor store is, and then development area C being the Shopko and the parking that's off to the west and slightly to the north. So for development area A, you'll note with this, we are allowing for uses all C3 and the list of limited light industrial for uses on this site. But as far as building goes, no new building can be allowed for LI purposes, just for C3 purposes. As far as the uses allowed in this district, just go over them again. It's all C3. There's also limit production and processing, contractor yard, but it must be fully enclosed within the building. Dry cleaning establishment / commercial laundry, research and development facility, public safety and service facility, general office, government office, bank or other financial institution, clinic, healthcare facility, artist studio, warehousing, and educational training facility. For the warehousing that's not self-storage, that's not permitted at all. This is warehousing like they're doing right now with the site for Martin's Goods. Additionally, there's some CUP aspects to this. That would also include then minor material recovery facility, ground transportation service, package delivery service, telecommunication tower, dwelling in conjunction with a business, and live working it. So that would be allowed in the area as far as a use, but no new building in that area. In B and C, those uses would be allowed, but building could be done, but it has to be in conjunction with the bulk requirements for C3 development standards. Some other restrictions would be screening to the west for the folks who are living in the residential areas off to the west. Our landscape requirements are required to be put in within 12 months to screen off that area. There'd be a limit on fencing that would be facing off towards Military Avenue within 200 feet of the right-of-way. And there'd be a limit on the types of developments that would look similar to industrial uses such as garages and loading docks along Military Avenue. So there might be a use inside of those buildings. That could be an LI, a limited LI use. The design and feel of it would not be one of industrial uses. So next, and this is just a quick look around. This is your development area A. Next, this is B, and then finally, the next two are where C is being the north part of the lot, and then the next image is the little annex part that comes out along Military. So these uses would become, rather than temporary, they become permanent for both C3 and the limited LI uses on the site.
All right, thank you. Any discussion or questions for staff?
So has the owner expressed the need for, why does it need to be permanent? I had heard at the last meeting, and I apologize, I forget his name, but a gentleman from H.J. Martin say they don't want this to be warehousing or this forever. So then why does it need to be permanent if they don't plan on it being that?
Right, at the time, so that's David Martin who was here. And at neighbor meetings, and I believe at this last plan commission, he did state that, so right now the PUD goes until 24. So it was approved in 21, it's 3 years. The development agreement goes 1 year plus 1 year extension can happen on it as well. He has mentioned the idea of 10 years as being an option. But with that, or as an idea of how much they need to go ahead for time to develop this site, he cited back over to how long it has taken to redevelop the site over in Ashwaubenon. That took about 7 years or so to take the old Menards that was out there to turn into the Bellin Health facility that is right now. So there hasn't been a specific time. They're asking for permanent, which could be more than 10 years, that's for sure. But 10's been a number that's been bounced around here by the Martin family.
Okay. Because for me, that 10 years makes sense, looking at how the other project you just mentioned, the Menards, 7 years. Okay, but permanent, it sticks. Like all of a sudden you get into that point where there is nothing to push you to redevelop. I don't like permanent. I can't be on board with that.
Can we put a limit on it?
Was there condition, there wasn't a condition list? Well, there is, I guess.
There is in the PUD itself.
Yeah.
You put a limit on it on the last one here for the temporary one.
Right.
At that point, you put 3 years. Or you approved 3 years. I don't know if that was
Right.
necessarily one done by planning commission.
Right.
Ken, I tend to agree. I think some of the other concerns about the rest of the property can be at least there's something there to hold them to. Permanent is permanent, so I think it's a decent idea. I don't know if they'll go for it, but I think it's probably as good as we can do.
Right.
Go ahead,
I
Neil.
think there might be a couple folks who would maybe like to comment on this
All
item
right.
as well.
Motion open.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pratt, second by Alder Hutchinson to open the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Did you want to speak on
Yeah,
this?
good.
Go ahead.
Ted Manick, again, Wisconsin Micro President, Gorman and Company, 200 North Main Street, Oregon, Wisconsin. This has been a big discussion between the Martins and staff for a long time. David, I think, thinks that the intent of our group is that, the way that this was structured, where they can't add on, they can't improve the building, they can only do things inside, kind of says, we're just going to use it as is. We're not extending the life of the building. We're not going to expand windows. We're not going to expand docks. We're not going to expand what we're doing there. We're just doing this until kind of the useful life expires, the environment gets better, and we can move on. And I will guarantee you, the Martins are not saying that that's a beautiful building and they want to keep it. I think David said that here on the record. But I'll tell you, putting a term on it kind of kills the deal, because Ed will not agree to a term. We've discussed this many times. And the reason is as I indicated before, if you had a crystal ball of what the economy's going to do, even in 10 years, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing today. So, it's a tough deal. It's almost like, I hate to use the word trust because nobody likes trust, but you have two stakeholders that are going to be there a while. I've got, a real big stake there for 30 years. I ain't moving. And I'm going to own and I'm going to manage. And I'm going to be talking to Ed. And so I just think that it will take care of itself in the organic due course, but I think a time limit is not going to be well received by the Martins. I'll just put that out there. But I understand where you're coming. I get it. We've talked about it, but it's just something that he will not agree to. So I just want to.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Leah Waker with Military Avenue, 425 South Military again. So this is part of the problem with the housing piece. So now you guys know what we've been looking at. It's not a complete picture, and I think that's why we have to buy some time perhaps on what does the whole space look like. I think you're exactly right, Michael. That plan of full housing was awesome. Military Avenue Business District did not speak to this because, again, this was information that came up way after, I think, our third meeting here, and we're still, getting more information all the time. So my board only meets once a month, and literally information comes up weekly. So I can't speak for the board on this piece, but we do not want Military Avenue to become a warehouse district. That's not what's in that plan from 2013 or 2011. And I do think Green Bay can be better. Excuse me, I don't know my voice. I think we can do better with our housing. It's a great place to live, and I think we need more affordable housing, absolutely. I'm not opposed to that. I'm opposed to the way this is getting pushed through, and way too many contingencies, and it almost feels like being held hostage to get our housing. And you guys have a tough decision.
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pratt, second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I will say that since my time on the commission, I have definitely been one to want to move the needle and push developments forward. However, I do not like almost being held hostage by businesses, especially when you've been on the end of expressing the need for the partnership, and this doesn't feel like a partnership. I do love the 10-year, if we can put that on there, because that seems, just from history, from a historical assessment, seems reasonable. But I will go on record saying I do not like give me this or you get nothing type of mentality. That's just my personal standpoint. And we have historical information to go on as far as time limits. So that's kind of where my initial thoughts are. But definitely will yield to those with more experience.
Would we be able to bring up the ABC map real quick? So there's a lot going on here, but I think it's actually more simple than we're making it. So A, that's the part right up on Military, next to the new apartments. They only can add C3 to that. That's it.
So their uses can still be LI.
With
but
that
as
list.
far as with that list,
Yep.
as well as C3, but the actual building component, the improvements,
Mhm.
can only be for uses that are for C3.
Okay. And that leads to C being the one really where, and they can't, we're really just allowing them to continue the use that they have right now. They can't build anything on, they can't add dock doors, they can't become a warehouse because it is already kind of a warehouse at least.
They could add on to the building itself. They can't make it look like it's industrial use though. So they can't add the dock doors to the front along Military.
Okay.
Or loading docks, but you could do it to the back over on Randall. You could add on.
They could add dock doors along
Yes.
the residential side.
You could, yes. On that side there, the requirement would be within 12 months of approval, that they'd have to meet the existing code here for landscaping, perimeter buffering over there. So right now they have a grass strip. They need to meet the requirements of the code to upgrade to give the separation that way. Regardless if they build or not, that has to be done.
I'm not too concerned about the use. The list that we have in front of us is not intensive, and a lot of these ones that might be concerned about just don't make sense for the site as well. I can't imagine it would make any sense for them to do some of those ones. So basically, we're just allowing them to use what it's being used for now. If they want to make any substantive changes, as in turn it into a giant warehouse, they'd have to come back. They can't do that. They'd have to get a new PUD to allow that. I think I'm more concerned about the look of the building. Let's make sure that the people that will be living next door and seeing this from Military have a decent experience and don't view it as a eyesore. So I'd be more interested in conditions that ensure landscaping, condition of the building. We don't want peeling paint or busted, anything like that. That's more my concern, is keeping the building in good shape while they work on potential what's next.
I think the condition of the building and peeling paint, that would be like an inspection. The landscaping would be something to be put through us. Possibly.
John, can you remind, in terms of the conditions of the improvements to screening, landscaping,
Sure.
could we review that one more time?
Yep, we can. So for landscaping, transition yard, this is pretty boilerplate when it comes to this. Prior to the issuance of any building permits, detailed landscape plans shall be submitted and reviewed for chapter 44 of the code. Within 12 months of approval of the PUD by common council, development area C must be improved to meet the standards of Article 19, Division 5, Section 44-1964 of the code. That's essentially our landscape buffer, 25 feet right there. If a land use change occurs in development area B, which is one of the permitted light industrial uses, an approved site plan must include improvement standards of Article 19, going back to the berm must, or the buffering must go on north along Randall to go ahead and cover that from the road itself. All existing landscape areas must be maintained and in good repair. So those are our landscape requirements. As far as site plans that are anything that's different, if any site has been purchased, it shall be not further divided without review and consent of the city. An updated change of use site plan must be submitted to the Department of Community and Economic Development to denote any existing change of use on the site. Temporary barriers on the site, such as jersey walls or temporary concrete walls, must be removed. All existing and new service loading and refuse areas shall be screened in accordance with existing codes. Any ground-mounted and or roof-mounted mechanicals shall be screened in accordance with our existing codes. Going back up to fencing and just building and site plan maintenance. Any new building for C3 development uses shall have a building footprint, this is development area A, which encompasses a minimum of 50% of the street frontage along South Military Avenue. No new buildings or building additions shall be built in development area A for any allied light industrial uses. If you are in B or C though, you can add on to the building so long as you stay within the development standards for a C3 use. And why we're saying C3 is because light industrial could move further towards the setbacks, because in general, industrial areas are clumped with other industrial areas. This is not. In development areas B and C, no fences are allowed to be erected within 200 feet of the public right-of-way of South Military Avenue, Leo Street, or Elton Way. Keep in mind with that as far as just storage areas and things of that sort. No building design element associated with industrial uses shall be permitted, e.g. dock doors, garages, lifts, mechanicals, or other such development features, design features determined by the development director or their designee shall be allowed in areas which are visible from South Military Avenue. No new loading docks on the east, north, or south faces of the wall with the exception of existing loading docks. Service and loading docks are permitted along Randall Street right away, and any reconstruction beyond maintenance must comply with the code requirements for C3 dimensional and other regulatory standards. So if you're going to design it, it has to go ahead and meet a C3 design and feel if you're adding on to the building.
Thank you. So they gotta be pretty close to, if you're looking at the setbacks, any building, new construction would have to go back towards Randall, or I guess towards the north somewhat.
Yeah.
They can't go any closer to military, with the exception of A.
Yeah.
I think the real expansion area is to the west of the Shopper and
Yeah.
north of the Shopper.
So they're not coming
in that area.
They're not coming up any closer. It would be towards the backside or towards over there. In the current PUD, I'm guessing most of this does not exist in terms of holding them to improvements within 12 months, I would assume, because they're operating as is right now. This actually gives us something to hold to them to make improvements on the site within 12 months.
Right. That is the one you must do as far as an improvement to the site. It's the adding of the buffer over on Randall itself.
Okay. So we get that by, that's something we don't have now, within 12 months. We're holding them to an updated PUD that has all this, what John just went through, which I assume some of it's there right now, but probably not to the detail that we have right now.
The dimensional standards as far as, that the existing PUD essentially goes on about the additional uses that are allowed that makes the Bell and the warehousing and the employee facilities exist on the Shopko site at this moment.
And it didn't address probably anything in terms of landscaping, screening, any of that?
No, because it's temporary.
Exactly, okay.
I have a question, a comment. So, things have been negotiated over months, whatever, and it's clear that the owner of this property doesn't like the idea of a 10-year limit. Is that right? What we just heard?
If it was something they liked, this would have been already put into place here.
Okay. So, I guess we all have druthers for that property. It's owned by someone who has whatever ideas. I see the fact if this apartment development happens and it gets built, then all of a sudden, the rest of the site may be looking very good to develop in the same way. We can't envision that now because it's not there. And maybe there is a momentum to help get the rest of the site developed in that fashion versus not having anything there. I would much rather vote to leave this as is, get that apartment building built, and then see what the owner decides to do. I think things will happen potentially quicker, maybe they won't, but I am hopeful that the development of that site may be triggered by the success of that apartment building. So it's a leap, it may not make any sense at all, but that's what I'm looking at by voting for the wording as it is.
Just for my personal privilege, a point of clarification, was the owner notified of this commission meeting tonight?
Yes.
And they chose not to appear as a vote?
They were here last time.
They were here last time, but not this time.
There is a representative I see here from Mao who is here.
I'm sorry?
He's been. Oh my God, he's out the window.
Should we open the
Did
floor?
you want to open the floor if they want?
Yes, motion to open the floor.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Daniels to open the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. If you could come forward and speak. I guess, I don't even know if you wanted to talk, but you're.
With Mount Associates, 400 Screen Boulevard. I wasn't planning on speaking. I think John's been doing a very good job. The Martins aren't going to take their name off of that sign. They're going to be marketing this, regardless of what happens on this site. But like it's been mentioned, they are tied together. That is in the offer to purchase. And I mentioned, they can't really do anything to the site. If they disturb more than 500 square feet, they need to bring that whole site into compliance with the City of Green Bay Code for C3. And it just would be counterintuitive of the whole thing to make this building look nice just to use the building. Their intention is to market the site for who knows what it would be. They didn't want to provide, they called it fluff. We don't know who's going to be interested in this site. I think, like was mentioned, this is a catalyst for the site. You have to start someplace, and I know it's something that you mentioned, it is all or nothing. Would you rather have the housing or none of it, when if you get the housing, it could spur more housing or more development on the site. So if you guys have specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I think, the two aspects of it, they kind of go hand in hand. We're not holding it hostage, like it was said. It's just, we need time. With no crystal ball, you don't know. Maybe it's 11 years. I mean, so if you put a time frame on it, you don't know. And that's where they're going with the 3+1+1. So, with that, anything else?
Would it be fair to characterize, they're not looking to add, they don't want the year in there just because it's going to be a burden, something to have to worry about in this
Right.
regard. There's obviously no intent. I'm sure this is not the highest and best use that they have in mind
No.
for it. It's more of why put that on there when
Right.
there's not much of a purpose to it. We put plenty of conditions on the rest of it already there. So I guess I'm just understanding why they wouldn't want, why they're so against a year timeline, just the burden of.
I can't speak to that, that's the owners. I wasn't privy to that conversation, but, yeah. The existing uses are the intended PUD that's put before you. Everything's inside the building. Okay.
Real quick, Ted Mathen, Wisconsin American Government Company. So it's interesting that when your discussion has gone towards this hostage mentality, and I'll say Ed is actually thinking he's doing everyone a favor, giving us a little piece of land to do the housing, and kind of letting us start that, because he'd much rather market this whole thing as one big parcel to somebody. So, I had to convince him, being the inside track guy that I want to be, that I will be the guy to make this catalytic deal happen here. But he's feeling he's giving something to the community versus holding it hostage. The other thing I wanted to say is the plan that I gave you there, we both agreed not to do it, just so you know. I mean, it's not like if you said no to this, that something would happen with the Shopko site. I mean, there's no housing going there because the rents there are not high enough to, our market rents are like $12.50. I mean, to have something happen there in today's construction dollars and interest rate divided, it's gotta be like $18.50. It's not happening there. And so it's not gonna like spur someone to act if you say no. I get the time limit. It just adds, a good businessman. I mean, he's not gonna put a term limit on something that he can't see in the future. That's just the bottom line. So.
The Waker and Military Avenue, I think, Ken, you put your finger on it, it's a permanent rezone. That's what you're looking at.
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Praddock to close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so I've got a couple questions for staff. All right. So now so if we're to put a 10-year limit on it, they would just have to come back and be like, we need more time, right?
Did he come back at that point and request more time?
So now, my other question is, as staff, you guys are recommending the approval. And I know that as staff, I think you feel the same way as us. We don't like, maybe this will happen, and permanent things like warehouses and business districts. And you feel comfortable with not putting a limit on this?
Right, understanding the merits, people have good merits in talking on this in both ways.
Right.
We looked at this overall though, with the apartment complex and where negotiations have come here, we felt comfortable to go ahead and not put, to write that there has to be a time limit as far as staff recommendation goes, yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't like permanence. It's so hard.
And I go back to the original comment I had from the last motion, which ties into this one, that if we want to look at that long-term strategy of forming a neighborhood environment with multiple housing units, this motion is going completely opposite to that by saying we want to leave it as is, for me. I have a hard time seeing both of them together. And I think that the points are very valid about, and I don't want to use this kind of hostage situation, but if we're all moving to that same goal, that doesn't sound like it's a coherent vision for that area and that's location in the city. And so with that, I'd make a motion to deny.
I would second the motion.
I have a hard time with the permanence of just, but at the same time, what, the people who have owned that area, they've been doing good work, but it's, again, it's still putting that, it's permanent. I have a hard time with that. I mean, I would feel better with 10 years, and then they can come back if they needed to extend it, but that permanence is just, it's so, permanent. I mean, when does the PUD expire? If it doesn't.
Right now, this is permanent.
Right, permanent, like.
Until somebody else comes forward with another plan that was approved, rezoned,
And
this is what it is.
Right.
I think for me, though, it's we're looking at this now in context of this particular development in the corner of it. And I think that the counter reaction to all this is, you're putting this, what we just passed in the first motion of this apartment complex, you're straddling that entire development around that apartment complex. This would be a much easier decision if we knew what was going on around it. But there's no idea. We know, I mean, it's been very obvious to the commission that this would hopefully not be the goal of that property. No one is advocating this state warehouse permanently and the other uses. So it's counterintuitive to suddenly say, we're gonna make this permanent. And if there's a problem with that, that needs to have more time to be worked out in a longer-term strategy than is currently being presented to the commission, so that we can ensure good and more even housing for residents in the city.
I see your point that, only being a resident of this area for 12, 13 years, I mean, how long did that Sears building stay there vacant or with nothing?
6 years or so.
Again, I'll go on record, I don't like to impede progress. And I have visited Madison and saw the other properties, and they look much better than anything else on the street. So I have no doubt that this will set the tone for that area. I just don't like feeling like we're bullied into a situation where we have to say yes. And that's what I feel like.
The question is permanent industrial use here appropriate?
Permanent light industrial.
Light industrial, sorry.
There's a big difference in our code between light industrial and industrial.
Thank you.
Well, I think the bottom line is, do we want that apartment building or not? Because if we vote this down, they'll walk away from it. It's that simple.
I think I'm on the same page. We're submarining this because we want to feel better about the fact that we think they're getting us on this. Are we that cynical?
But are we submarine it, or are they doing it by putting that contingency?
No, I guess let's look at reality here, Ken. What's permanent? What's permanent? You know what I mean?
I guess we
Permanent
could
is
come
a
back
word
to
that means different things. When you're talking about a zoning of a property, permanent doesn't mean permanent. Not to me. I've seen so many changes and whatever. To me, to get that apartment building built, because again, I'm for it because of the rooms, we need them, it overrides this permanent word that's associated with this. I think it's so important to get these rooms that if we keep this zone permanent, fine. It's gonna change, it's probably gonna change. And if the business opportunity is there for the owner, he's gonna do steps to make that business opportunity happen, be they, good for the apartment or bad. I'm of the belief if that apartment building gets built, it will stir things in that direction. I just think that'll happen, because those buildings are pretty well built and they look great, okay? So, the notion of voting this down, the second one is gonna vote the apartment complex down. That's the simple fact. We have the opportunity right now to approve the apartment, get it built, and I don't like the feeling of walking away from that, simply because the zoning would be permanent, because it's, permanency is just a word. That's where I'm coming from.
They're already using the site right now. They can't substantially change the site even with a permanence without having to come back to us. So yes, it's a permanent thing, but they can't do anything with the site substantially without having to come back to us. So I don't care if it's permanent. If they need to do a major change that would affect the neighborhood, they'd have to come back or start over fresh with that. So they're already using it for these purposes. They're going to use it for probably the same thing that they're using it for right this moment, which is Bell and Health, and I forget the other office space in there. Probably what they're intending on doing with it for the foreseeable future.
Why are they using it already like that? Because we allowed that to happen?
Because we wanted to activate a site that was empty.
That they bought for light industrial use, that was zoned commercial.
I mean, we just went through all the virtues of all this, and then we're gonna turn around and say, no, we don't want the housing because this building might be used for something in the future. Okay, guys.
I want the housing, I just approve it.
I think it's a good point that it's permanent until we change it. Because, I mean, that's what we're doing right now too, so.
There's a motion on the floor.
Right there,
I guess
yeah.
we could just vote.
Okay. So there's a motion by Commissioner Praddick and a second by Commissioner.
Rovinsky.
It was by, I wasn't, okay, by Commissioner Rovinsky. Sorry, all right, should we do an individual vote?
So what's the motion? To deny?
Deny. Sorry.
Why don't you do an individual vote?
Okay,
rather
so
than asking?
yay is denying.
Yay is denying.
Nay is no to the denial.
No to the
Okay.
denial.
All right. All right, Vice Chair Miller,
Nay.
Commissioner Daniels,
Nay.
Commissioner Rovinsky,
Aye.
Commissioner Praddick,
Aye.
Alder Hutchinson,
Nay.
and Chair Hansen, nay. Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Okay, so we have a motion by Alder Hutchinson, a second by Vice Chair Miller. Any further discussion? All right, Vice Chair Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Daniels,
Aye.
Commissioner Rovinsky,
Nay.
Commissioner Praddick,
No.
Alder Hutchinson,
Aye.
and Chair Hansen, aye. So 4-2, and then going 4-2, City Council for March 7th. All right. Moving on to item number 3.
Great. I mean, honestly.
I'm just joking, no, I'm just joking.
Oh, is it really, oh my God, it is.
You can take a motion.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Yes.
Oh, hey, buddy.
I can help you with the next 3 items. This is Wendy Townsend, I'm the bid liaison.
Wendy,
And,
hold up,
Can you hear me
Wendy.
okay?
Yeah,
We
but
can
your
just run
item's not up
through.
yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you wanted to take a break.
We got 10 items left after.
Should we run through these 3 items quick, or do you want to take a break first?
I don't know if there's a decorum that we need on this, or we just decide to, and we,
It's up to you guys.
it's up to us. I'm fine to press through, maybe let's just plan to do
Let's do.
a break after the bids.
Yeah, let's do the bids, because Wendy's on.
Okay.
So, all right, so should I read through all 3 items, or just we'll just start with number 3, all right. Item number 3, consideration with possible action on the Downtown Green Bay, Inc. Business Improvement District's year-end reporting for 2022.
Yeah, I can summarize this real quick, that all 3 items will be brought to the Plan Commission. It's a requirement each year to bring forward the year-end reports for each bid. last fall, there was an anticipated budget that was submitted, and what we're going to do is the comparison, so the end of year report out. This is stated in the bid handbook, so we'll let Benny pursue the first one.
Thank you, Wendy. Hi, I'm Jenny Van Langenberg. I'm here to represent Downtown Green Bay Incorporated. And do you have do I need to share my screen, or would you just prefer to have, or do you have the items in front of you? The top of it says DGBI and charities 2022 budget versus actual. Does everyone have that?
Yep, that was shared in the packet.
Okay, great. Then I will just, it's a very cumbersome sheet that you have in front of you, so I will try to walk through it as quickly and concisely as possible, but please feel free to ask questions at any time. I also wanted to state overall that going into 2023, we have made a change with our business improvement district and the management of them. So Downtown Green Bay Incorporated is now completely overseeing the management of the Downtown Green Bay bid and the Old Main Street bid. It's not much different than what has happened before, but there was a separate 501c3 for Old Main Street. We did go through a consolidation process where that 501c3 got closed at the end of the fiscal year of 2022. The bids will still stay separate, and we have a way to record the expenses so that we know that the dollars coming in for each bid will be staying separate moving forward, but they will be managed by one 501c3. And to take that one other level, as you can see here too, it does say Downtown Green Bay Inc. and Charities. Inc. Charities was another 501c3 that was an arm of, actually I'm explaining that wrong. Downtown Green Bay Inc. was a 501c6, and then we had Charities, which is 501c3. We're keeping, there's one surviving entity, which will be renamed Downtown Green Bay Inc., and we dropped the 501c6. So as you can see, kind of a messy situation from when this got started, 20 years ago to where we are at now. We're just consolidating things to make things simpler on the auditing end, the bookkeeping end. And it doesn't really look any different to anybody outside of our organization and our auditors. So I just wanted to make you aware of that this sheet will actually look much cleaner next year because of the way we're streamlining things. But anyway, for this year, comparing what we had projected that we would do for 2022 and what actually happened, we actually came out really well, all things considered. One thing I wanted to point out is when this budget was created for 2022, this budget was created like mid-year, or Q3 of 21. We were still, that was still in the midst of the pandemic and still coming out of that time frame where events were still a little iffy. We were hoping for the best in 22, and it really did turn out quite well for us. So overall, very happy. And just a few big things to point out here. This large line item here in our income for special event revenue and sponsorships, that was it's considered the charities arm. That was the 501c3, where we're able to take in money through sponsorships and event revenues. So what we had budgeted for $346,000, we actually came in at $331,000. So hit that number quite well. Again, for a budget that was a little we were unsure of due to the pandemic. A few other things recorded here. We received some extra money for an employee retention credit at the federal level. Received some of the ARPA funds from the city of Green Bay for the farmer's market. One thing to note is when we created our budget, we had thought we would be using about $75,000 of PPP funding that was received actually in '21. We just kind of plugged that number in there, knowing we'd have to probably dip into that to make our budget come out. As you can, I'm going to drop to the bottom, like the very bottom line here. We didn't end up really needing to dip into it quite that much. We had predicted the 75,000. At the bottom line here, you can show that we were $12,000 short, so really it was about that amount, the $12,000 that I would say came out of that PPP money or those reserves that we had. So sorry, I don't want to go too much into the weeds with that, but everything else that we set out for the year ended up coming out okay with our staffing. We did have to increase staffing, the amount we pay our staff, including our event crew, to keep up with wages in the industry, to retain workers and to recruit new workers. Even though that had happened, we still came under budget because we did have basically almost a full-time person out for the whole year. We had 2 full-time positions open for the majority of a year, so we did come a little short, or we didn't spend as much as we thought we would on staffing. And all of our other operating expenses, as you can see here, were pretty much in the ballpark of what we had predicted, with a little extra that was spent in legal fees and such in order to consolidate the organizations, like I had already mentioned earlier. Our main focuses in our organization for programming are physical improvements. As you can see there, the total, we underspent just a little bit because that was one of the positions that was unfilled in 2022, so we were just trying to get by. We didn't have as much of a chance to get to work on public art and some of the the other things that take some time from staff member to do that. So more of that to come in 23. And as far as business development and marketing, 2 other major things that we do came in right in budget where we would have expected. And special event expenses are included in on this budget. Those were also kind of in line with what we had anticipated. Or not too far off from what we thought. So again, as it turns out, we did well, all things considered, with things bouncing back for the year with sponsorships, and we're able to hold many events, had some new events, and made a lot of things happen in a year coming out of the pandemic. So any questions, anything more specific you'd like to know?
Motion to approve?
Jenny, I do have one question for you.
Yes.
Out of the physical improvements, looks like there was some money kind of moved around, potentially like less or more spent on Adams Street, less on public art, that type of thing. I know that's one thing that a lot of people notice is, of course, the physical improvements, the holiday lighting and stuff like that there. So I guess just a more general question of what's in plans for 23. Is it going to be similar, or is there going to be more money that's going to be needed for certain things?
Sure, good question. And I'm sorry, I should have addressed the Adams Street plan. It's kind of the beginning of what we're hoping is an exciting opportunity. The actual streetscape in the downtown area hasn't been a major focus at the city level. And we do have a physical improvements committee in our organization, and it's something that they have recognized, and our staff has recognized that we want to start really looking at making improvements in our downtown, and they chose the 3 blocks of Adams Street to really take a look at it because it's the blocks north of Walnut Street. So it's kind of got down by Hotel Northland all the way up to Walnut. We have 3 of the fanciest restaurants in Green Bay on that street, and if you were to take a walk down there, you would definitely notice that it needs a facelift. The streetscape plan is still there from the pre-Port Plaza Mall days. So I would say that way on Adams as well as on Washington Street. Hasn't been a major focus or hasn't been given enough love. So our organization has invested in the initial plan with ISG to start looking at concepts on how we can improve that. We have worked very closely with the city leaders, including Public Works and the mayor and the economic development team. So I feel like we have all the right players to really start moving things forward. And so that is one of the major focuses that we're looking at in 2023 is to really start looking at the streetscape. Like you said, it's very visible, and I think everyone agrees that it needs an upgrade, and we had to start somewhere.
Thank you.
Yep. And one more thing to add to that, just so you're aware, just very recently, a few weeks ago, our request for ARPA funds to hire an urban designer, or an urban planner, I'm saying it wrong, urban planner that will focus just on the downtown area between, on our side of the river as well as on Broadway District, has been approved with ARPA funds. So that's moving forward as well to help move some of these things forward as well as some other projects that we want to be working on. So more to come on that.
All right. Thank you so much, Jenny. So we have a motion.
Can we get a second?
We need a second.
Second.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Pradik, a second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then now we'll move forward then to City Council for March 7th. And then item number 4 is consideration with possible action on the Military Avenue Business Improvement District's year-end reporting for 2022.
Hi, Leah Waker again, 425 South Military. I don't have the handouts, but they should be in your packet. As usual, we were always pretty conservative on our budgeting, and so we came in within budget. Sometimes we have a hard time spending money in the sense of we have plans and then it just doesn't quite come to spending as much as we anticipated. So that was true this year as well. We did get the $25,000 grant for the farmer's market, so we were able to add a staff person. As you know, the bids are all structured differently. Our bid has one employee, being myself. So it was really nice to get some help for that farmer's market. So we have a part-time person, and potentially to add them, to add a full-time part-time, to add a part-time person going forward that's not just focused on the farmer's market would be a goal. Right now, the position's just super part-time for just the market. But if you had any questions, I think this is a report of how we did budget-wise, but we still are, part of the spending from this year was the strategic plan, and we paid some of it in last year's budget and then some in the beginning of 2022. And we still have to implement a lot of those things. So we were looking at a redesign of the image and branding, different branding, which is a huge price tag. And I think our group is super conservative to make sure that we have the funds available. So that should be coming. We had anticipated then the banners will change out as well. So, a lot of things will be affected by a new branding. And we'd like to be a good safety district as well and look into cameras, some more crime preventative, and just encouraging private property owners to install their own image systems outside of their buildings. So that's the other big ticket thing that we're looking at going forward. any questions on my, I did include, I think we had talked to it, and we didn't have the complete business list. So when we approve our operating plan with you guys, usually that's never ready. So I didn't include it, and he caught that I didn't include it. So I did include it this time, because it's actually finalized, and it literally was finalized in like February. So it takes that long. We did see an increase, I think, because of the difference in the 2022 property taxes. Our revenue actually went up for the first time since I've been employed there. Sorry. We're all in that boat, I live in Green Bay as well. Actually, I don't think commercial went up as much as residential did. But it did increase our revenue slightly for this upcoming year.
Quick question, not around this, but just a sign. Where is the farmer's market going to be in the same location, or is it going to move?
Good question. I keep going back and forth with them. It's going to be in that parking lot somewhere.
Okay.
We're booming with new business. A good problem to have, but I keep encouraging, and I think Jenny pointed out a strategic or a urban planner. I would really love them to help me plan in a place that market always had a place to go.
Right.
Parking lot doubled as turns into a market on the right day.
Right.
I don't have any good plans of that, like I know it exists.
Green space, something that
Yeah,
can be green
something
space
that
on
would
other
butt up
days
against
and
it,
market.
right.
Yeah.
So I think right now, they told me where the Club Car Wash that you guys approved on the corner was approved, there were 5 other little spots.
Right.
And he said he's got like really active interest on 3 out of those 5.
Wow.
So he guaranteed me a spot in that parking lot till August, which is like prime farmer's market time.
Right.
So we might need to move to another spot in that market, or in that parking lot, but it will definitely be there. Our winter one is going on right now, and I think they've always said, let Leah use the spaces because they activate the buildings and they end up getting rented, and it happened again.
Oh.
So as much as I'm loving that 30,000 square feet that they let us use for the former Office Depot, there's definitely interest. So we won't have that next time, but they're already telling me which other spaces to activate to turn over.
Tuesday morning.
No, actually, Tuesday morning is signed off already for Sierra. Sierra,
Right,
the old Sierra Trading Post, it's now called Sierra, but it's a division of TJ Maxx.
Interesting.
Their sports division, so like Columbia and, and then the old buffet that we had our market in, that one's been under renovation for a long time. It was in really rough shape and having been food related, and that will be 5 Below.
Okay.
So those 2 big spots are spoken for, and like I said, the big one that I'm in is now going to be spoken for as well. They won't tell me what that one is, but I heard little ideas.
All right.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you, Leah. We've got a motion by Commissioner Praddick, second by Commissioner Daniels to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then moving on to item number 5. Consideration with possible action on Old Main Street, Inc. Business Improvement District's year-end reporting for 2022.
All right, this is the easier of the 2 budget versus actuals that I get to present tonight. And if you take a look at it, it's pretty straightforward. Everything that we had kind of predicted in the budget was pretty close, pretty spot on. We did end up taking in more contributions and sponsorships than we had projected, which is good because in the bottom line, we originally had anticipated a shortfall in our budget, and we ended up coming out ahead about $2,400. So all in all, it was a solid year for Old Main Street, and we did, we kept up with our planter program that takes place. There were 38 planters that are up and down the district, and we also take care of a few of the medians on Main Street as well. That's contracted with the plant people, so that really helps with our district appearance. We spent a little bit of money on some banners. They are in need of replacement, so I do anticipate this year that we will have to really take a look at the banners that are located on Old Main, and we're working right now with our board of directors, and we're actually getting a little subcommittee to talk about what does that look like on Old Main Street. Currently, it says the Arts District. We're not sure if we want to stay with that identity or what that's going to look like moving forward. So you might see some changes coming up in the future as far as the banners go on Old Main. Everything else, just a lot of the things kind of just get rolled into what we do with downtown Green Bay. We share the marketing pieces and such. We did have several events in Whitney Park last year, and everything is coming back really solid as far as events went, and the revenues for Old Main Street. So very solid year. Any questions at all?
Motion to approve.
No, thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Motion by Commissioner Craddock,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Miller. Any further discussion?
I would just say that all three of the reports have a lot of community impact for a relatively small amount of the budget. So
Right.
applaud to all three districts for all that they do with the amount.
Right. All right, so motion by Commissioner Craddock, second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then moving on to item number 6. Consideration with possible action on request to vacate utility easements on vacated Motor Street and vacated portion of State Street at 1919 South Broadway, submitted by the Green Bay Department of Public Works on behalf of Georgia Pacific Consumer Products LP property owner.
Thank you. This one should be pretty straightforward. We have two sections of vacated roadway located here, which are both on 1919 South Broadway, which is where GP is located. There are existing utility easements underneath this utility area, which are shown more specifically here. They need to be relocated with Georgia Pacific's expansion. They've already worked out a deal with whoever is in those utility areas to move them and have them relocated out of there. So we're really getting a total package application here. So just two conditions on this, both from New Water and then our Department of Public Works about them following through on the relocation of those utilities. So we're recommending approval with those conditions.
Do we have any discussion?
I just want to know how they got all those utilities to agree to move. They have any pointers?
They're paying to have them moved.
Yeah.
That's how they do it.
I think they're being just like friendly.
I'm guessing their utility bill's big enough, Ken, that they answered the phone.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, second by Commissioner Craddock. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and that will move forward then to City Council for March 7th. Ooh, moving on to our first public hearing. All right. New sheet. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information in this matter, and your comments or concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. And if you are, is there anyone left on internet?
I don't think so.
Okay, then I'm not gonna, all right. Okay, we will now open the public hearing on item number 7. Public hearing on request to amend the city's comprehensive plan for the portion of properties located at 815 through 821 South Chestnut Avenue and 414 through 418 4th Street from commercial land use to medium intensity retail, office and housing.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I'll give a quick, quick overview before the public hearing, but not a recommendation until action item, which is the next item. So this is the site, and the first thing I want to point out is the big red line on the X. 414 was not meant to be in this comp plan or rezone change. So it was in the public hearing that way. So I
It
am
has to
just
be here.
stating that it is not part of it. So this is the site itself. It's on the south side of the shipyard, directly south of Mason Street on the north. You can see the, I believe that's an on-ramp and an off-ramp. You have the coal piles directly to the east across Broadway. To the west, you have predominantly single and two-family homes, a single two-family neighborhood, as well as to the south, with the exception of the Broadway frontage, which is commercial. And if you go to the next slide, please, madam. This is just sort of a, forgot I put this in here, but a better location map of where it is. One more is just a closer site, so you can see the site itself right now has a garage, an old garage still on it that is being used by the Green Bay Bicycle Collective for storage. It's actually very pretty. They painted it all up. It looks really great. But that is the only thing left on the site, and a driveway. To the east, there is a dry cleaner, some mini storage, and then as I had mentioned, it is pretty commercial all along Broadway with a few exceptions of a few homes, and very low density residential to the south and the west. Next one, please. So this is the future land use plan in our code right now, again with my line and X. So you can see that the current comp plan recommends commercial land use for that entire block itself. To the south is that high-intensity retail office housing. To the west is low to medium density housing. And if you want to flip to the next slide. So you can see the zoning matches that. If you don't recall, it wasn't too many years ago that staff came through, redid everything in this area, it all matches up, which is nice. Now we're changing a little bit of it. But if you'll notice with the zoning, that light yellow is an R1 or an R2 zoning. I believe that's R2 there. The orange is an OR, and the red is obviously a commercial zoning, and it's general commercial. So when we looked at this location, for one, it's all owned by the redevelopment authority. They are looking to market that for housing. Commercial districts do not allow housing on the first floor, only above the first floor. So when we looked at that, we were slightly concerned. I believe some of the reasoning was that that block was pretty much empty. It's just to the south of Mason Street, the ramps, that this would be a good place for commercial activity. We have kind of rethought that, especially when we look to the south, directly to the south, which is a mixed district, OR district, which allows commercial or multifamily, whether it's on the first floor or mixed use. And so we are coming forward with a recommendation of changing those 4 parcels, everything west of that line, to the OR district in another action, but to a medium intensity office or retail office housing designation in the comp plan, another item. And I think Chris, so we are recommending approval of changing the comp plan for those parcels from commercial to medium intensity retail office housing.
So it all matches up again. The orange with the orange.
The orange, yeah. But then it matches up with the comp plan as well, which isn't orange, it is going to be. But yes.
Okay. All right, so public hearing. All right. Looking to hear, from anybody, I guess anyone who, whether you favor, oppose, or providing information on this matter. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to item number 8. Consideration with possible action on request to amend the city's comprehensive plan for the portion of properties located at 815 through 821 South Chestnut Avenue and 414 through 418 4th Street from commercial land use to medium-intensity retail office and housing.
Correct. That is the comp plan designation, and again, without 414.
All right, so minus the 414, so it'd be 416 through 418.
Correct.
Okay.
And we are recommending approval of that.
Okay. because we just got the whole presentation, right?
Yeah.
Right, and that's how we're gonna do it. We're kind of in a hybrid scenario right now, where we're gonna try to do it this way, because although we don't have anybody here to speak,
Right.
sometimes the questions are answered through the presentation.
Right, yeah, you're right. Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rubinski, second by Commissioner Praddick. Any further discussion?
Just one, I will be abstaining on this vote. I know one of the nearby property owners, or next door property owners.
All right. All right, so with that motion on the floor, we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And one abstention. All right, and then that will move forward then to City Council for March 7th. All right, item number 9, public hearing on request to rezone properties at 815 through 821 South Chestnut Avenue and 414 through 418 4th Street from general commercial to office residential.
And I kind of went over this in the
Mhm.
last one.
Yep.
So this is the same area. This would just change the zoning to now match what you're recommending for the comp plan.
And it's 416 through 418.
Right, and we would go with that office residential zoning, allows mix of uses, a little bit higher density, but also commercial, while still leaving 414 commercial to make a developable lot still along Broadway, should tidy or the mini warehousing ever be redeveloped.
Motion to approve.
Was this the public hearing?
Public hearing.
Yeah. All right, all right, is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding item, item number 10. Consideration of possible action on request to rezone properties at 815 through 821 South Chestnut Avenue and 416 through 418 4th Street from general commercial to office residential.
We are recommending approval of the zone change.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rubinski, second by Commissioner Praddick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Oh, and one abstention. We have one, Vice Chair Miller, an abstention on the record.
Okay. Do you want to do a break? Or-
Yes, please.
Let's do a quick 5.
Oh, man, I was gonna
Ooh, on a roll,
go
on a
through
roll.
this, but okay, all right, okay. So we'll take a 5-minute break?
Just a quick.
Okay.
As long as it takes, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go. Actually,
I didn't realize those 2 items took an hour and a half.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't paying attention. That's behind me.
Just muted, I don't know if I I don't think we need to pause.
There's no outlets around there.
Good, how are you?
Yeah, that corner, and probably the back here.
I'll keep it in my notes.
I'm just gonna run.
We're almost done.
We're gonna leave Larry in here.
We got your voice out already.
I'll be ready for no. I thought for some reason there was not, but that's not. That's a.
Yeah, one day
Yeah.
report, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was like, oh, that'd be perfect.
Cool. Should think about running.
Yeah, if you want to go during the public hearing.
I'll just my
I
intention
will,
was probably
yeah.
telling on her brother when her dad
I've been
is
saying
like
at work, I
there.
said, make sure
Yeah,
you
pick
overflow that before I shop.
Like, why are you the same assistant or hear you talk to your father?
Sounds like an extension. With a power strip or something.
Which way does the trigger the lizard wait?
I thought there was like, but it's not.
Yeah, you would
That's
have.
just the table.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's like a whole,
I just forget, because like when I go to regular meetings, it's a drain like this, you know?
well, there's a, yeah, there's a
Three
table.
meetings.
I'm cord.
I'm okay. There's too many,
Underneath it runs along the.
you guys, I know, their names are all difficult and I have to remember their voices. My mind keeps on going through today and I don't put names.
Give me a whole lot of facility.
And then I have been saying quiet down at the end, so I keep on saying Alder Hutchinson, like, wait, what's his name? Where? What? My goodness, see the name tags pointed toward me.
When you code wonks, does a garage,
Code wonks.
does that detached garage count as an accessory structure? So if
That
I have
is
it.
the pure definition of an
I'm
accessory.
just making sure. So I can still build a shed or a greenhouse in addition to my detached garage?
150.
150 square feet?
Yeah.
Hey, people think
Is that a permit? Is that a permit or if it's under 150? It's-
Yes, it's permit. Unless you just put it up, because I put up a shed.
Square footage requirements for.
Well, I thought about that, I'm like, well.
You told me I could.
I think we need to add.
Yeah.
If it's 180 square feet, something like that.
50, 100, 150, that we have different, do we actually?
I don't have a lot of.
Just like a
That one I might be able to do.
The extension cord.
Yeah, exactly. That one is.
As we put it together, it's very light. This is gonna my face. One of those pretty bills from.
I don't know much, and I know you.
They're like tied down in every corner.
I have one of those where you have it on.
Wall or something?
Add it to the list of reasons why this building is not ideal.
It was there at one point.
But yeah, so it's just kind of, it just is what it is. They didn't have, no way did they anticipate the electrical device usage that we do now. When they built this building, they had no idea.
When was this built?
I want to say the 50s.
John, I
We
do
should have a
think I
packet
reviewed
for
my
accessory
site
buildings like
plan
that.
for the work that we're doing.
Like a side
Grant
building,
that
accessory
we're
building.
doing.
Test up on our.
I can handle that, just want to make sure I'm parking up the right tree.
Dave Buck, Window City Hall bill.
1956, I think.
I said 50s, I was just going for a decade.
50s is right.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
54, 56, 50, yeah. I can't remember.
I feel like I should know this.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, it's a plaque.
That sounds like it's a good Founder Day trivia question.
I know. Is there gonna be like an email list? Resolution? We all.
Strategy. Yeah.
That's right. Size your short.
Yeah.
Back in October.
Oh, that's right.
I'm definitely going to Quick Trip Valley. Hope they clean those streets.
No.
Thank goodness it's not us, Darius, that's all I know, thank goodness it's not
Side streets.
What's my hardship that I have to
I literally got to go 2 blocks, but if I go to Quick Trip, that's.
Maybe they were just sloppy. They were good, you can drive on them, but they were sloppy.
We need a Quick Trip on this side of the river, so I don't have to go on that side of the river.
Yeah, exactly.
Just wait till that development goes in, crossing that marathon.
Correct.
On a road street, yeah,
Eventually that,
yeah.
something.
Your bill's
If it ever
1956.
goes in.
56.
But Quick Trip, even
I
though
forgot that it's on the national
It's amazing. They'll run across the street from each other. Yeah, we're fine.
Well, hopefully
Really?
if that
You
goes up-
McDonald's, are you kidding me?
I know, hopefully if that goes up, they do
Well, if
something
he
with the
forgets that I
marathon, because
exist,
it needs some.
She didn't know it. Exactly.
They'll probably get their attention when a new one comes in, that usually does fix up the other one. That's true.
I don't know why the marathon is so bad. It's not like
Oh.
It doesn't
This is
up
not
the-
new, yeah.
It doesn't up the.
I know
So
the
if I
feeling.
put the planning matrix
exactly what you
outside
mean.
somewhere, will you stare at that? Can we keep going?
Judge that one, Darius, by saying, like, my wife.
Right, here we go.
I don't get it.
Yeah, this, yes, and that's, yeah, no, that's not good. That's really not good.
Yes. So aggressive.
Nice, very nice.
Sorry, I had to get it out. All right, you're back in session now, I figure where I am. Okay, all right, we're on item number 11, which is a public hearing on request to establish a planned unit development at the 1100 block of East Walnut Street to permit a mixed-use office and multiple-family residential development submitted by MF Housing Partners LLC applicant, City of Green Bay Redevelopment Authority property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Public hearing, you want to read the instructions, or you want me to have?
Oh, do I have to read it every time? Come on now. Really?
You follow the rules, Karen.
Oh.
Oh, we did for the last one.
Well then.
I mean, what?
Wait,
That's why I sorry.
I thought we got a brief overview.
Yeah, but do you want me to read the overview before you read that?
Oh my
You
gosh.
just gotta read it.
I've literally not only read this once every single planning commission meeting. I read it at the
Well, I could
beginning.
be for.
I mean, I can, no, here, I'll read it. If I'm supposed to read, I'll read it every time. No, this,
Way to go, Dave.
it's so long. All right, this public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The planning commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information in this matter, and your comments or concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable items. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Council is limited to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chairperson. Okay, so give you a quick overview. Again, this is a request for a plan unit development. It is essentially to allow the construction of a mixed-use office and 43-unit multifamily project at the corner of North Roosevelt and East Walnut Street. So what you see here is a 1.21 acre assemblage of parcels. There are 8 individual parcels at this location, mainly on East Walnut. If you want to flip to the next one. So this is just a site that has been cleared. This is another site that, much like the Chestnut, had been acquired through the redevelopment authority, reassembled into a larger piece that was able to be marketed, and that is what we'll be talking about today for a housing project. Just a couple views. This is a view from the intersection on the top from 2019. Looking at the site, you can see it's just kind of empty with a few trees. And then looking from the west on East Walnut, down east. Next one, please. So this is the future land use. Future land use plan recommends medium and high intensity housing. To the south, it is low density housing, but pretty much medium intensity to the north, east, west. Next one, please. This is the zoning, which doesn't quite match the recommended land use, but the orange is the OR, which is that mixed-use district, a little bit higher intensity. The yellow is the R1 district. That is mainly low density or single family. And the next slide, please. So what is being proposed here on this 1.2 acres, again, is 43 units and 5,000 square feet of office space. It is a 3-story building. Was there a site plan before this one?
I don't know if it's after. Don't make it scrolling.
Yeah, these are way out of order. Something happened.
This is public hearing too.
I know.
There's one in the packet.
Okay. So the building itself is going to be a 3-story building. Will be exceeding heights of 35-foot maximum height by 7 feet to 42 feet tall overall. Out of those units, out of those 43, 5 would be 1-bedrooms, 26 would be 2-bedrooms, and 12 would be 3-bedrooms. Or will be 3-bedrooms. The design of the building, and it's kind of hard to see from just the elevation drawings, but the site itself has a very west-east orientation, very linear, so it runs along the Walnut Street frontage. But the building itself has a lot of relief built into it. It has individual entrances along the entire East Walnut Street frontage. It has a mix of, mainly, it's fiber cement siding. However, it's got a mix of siding types and orientations. They are showing some vertical siding, some horizontally placed siding, and also some siding panels, which create sort of big block areas, all in the attempt to kind of break up that large facade, make it look like individual units and kind of fit more in with that East Walnut corridor. Additionally, there's a brick knee wall that's introduced all along the Walnut Street side and partially on the Roosevelt and west side of the buildings. And then where the commercial tenant or the office tenant, office or community service use, on the corner would be all brick on that first floor to kind of give it that presence that you're on the corner. Let me see, one issue that we, staff did come up with on this elevation itself is you'll notice the entrances, there are multiple entrances along the East Walnut side. We are concerned that some of these entrances have no, an example would be this one, don't have any type of covering over the door. So we are going to be recommending either some type of canopy or roof structure or other type of element to be approved by staff over those entryways. Thank you. there's the site. It looks much nicer on the site plan when you can see it. So again, the building is west-east, parking lot is behind the building, almost completely screened from East Walnut, and pretty dominantly screened even from North Roosevelt, with a big portion of the building, as well as an enclosure for dumpsters and that type of thing, and landscaping to kind of block that parking. The parking itself, now that I'm on it, is 56 stalls. You'll notice 6 of those sets of stalls, I'll just get up here and talk about them. 6 of these sets of stalls are double stacked. So those would be assigned to 6 individual 3-bedroom units. So there are two stalls on top of each other. There would be 10 stalls that could be used by the commercial entity, which again is on the corner. And those stalls could be shared between what we call daytime users, which is an office space or a community service space, and nighttime users, which is a residential space. The developers also utilized quite a bit of bicycle parking in the back, sort of this back corner, which also helps to reduce the parking count necessary. Only access to the site will be off of North Roosevelt. It's a little bit short of the required distance. I believe it's at 115 feet, and I think we require 155. The traffic engineer has looked at that and feels it is also appropriate. So really with the PUD, the one thing we did want to point out is there's pedestrian access obviously on East Walnut, on Roosevelt into the prime part of the building, but that area where the bike parking is also is an entryway into the facility as well, and also to access the back area, the parking areas. So staff is going to be recommending a walk leading out to the North Roosevelt frontage to the back of the property as well. So the PUD designation is really needed rather than just the straight OR district for basically 5 different reasons. One is the density. So density increases are required. They would be required to have about 2,000 square feet per unit of lot area, and they are at about 1,225 per unit. So increase in density. The maximum height, as I had mentioned, was 35 feet. They'd be going to 41, 42 feet in overall height. Increase in the maximum impervious surface coverage from 60% to a proposed 80%. Again, I mentioned the distance from the driveway to the intersection. Required to be 155, it's at 115, and a reduction in the buffer yard sizes, including the side yard on the west side from 15 feet to 5.5 feet, and the rear, which is on the north lot line, proposed 6 feet from the required 15 feet. We believe that the density is very appropriate. This is a very walkable area, and again, you had heard in a previous petition the walkability score. That is also in the petitioner's packet for this one as well. They are about, I would say, 1/5 of a mile from multiple parks, and about 1/2 a mile, so Navarino, Joannes, Whitney, and I think about a 1/3 of a mile from Main Street and from Webster Avenue, which both have commercial elements on them. So a very walkable area. There's also bus lines, as mentioned before, all over this area, and very, very close to one specific bus line. The other thing I guess I'd like to point out is that area itself, even though there's a lot of very small homes there, I wouldn't say small homes, large homes, there is a lot of multifamily homes. There's a lot more multi and twos than there are singles in this immediate area. So that density on much smaller lots, so average lot size out here is about 7,000 square feet. So that density is not something that this neighborhood is not used to. The height, primary reason for the height is one, for the stories, but a flat roof building would meet height requirements. The choice of roof is really to match the neighborhood. The neighborhood doesn't have a lot of flat roofs. It's more of a downtown, a strict downtown thing. So that is one of the reasons for that. And the setback exceptions, that 15 feet down to 5.5 and 6 feet, those were specifically talked about at the neighborhood meetings held by the petitioner. There was not a lot of concern, primarily because they are placing landscaping, and you can see that in your landscape plan, as well as a solid opaque vinyl fence. Also, this is very urban. people are used to being very close to each other. The houses are close to each other, the accessory buildings are right there, the lots are small. So staff does not find much of a problem with that. With that, I guess, I don't know if there's, no recommendation. So there you go, that's the basics.
All right. So at this public hearing, we're now looking to hear from anyone who'd like to speak on this. Is there anyone looking to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak?
I would like to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Come on forward. Name and address, please.
Hello, Alyssa Profit, 1262 Cherry Street in Green Bay, by this project. And just representing myself. Overwhelmingly, very much in support of this project. I think we heard a lot in the beginning of this meeting tonight. There's a need for housing, overwhelmingly in Green Bay. I think this area and this acreage, to go to three stories and have all these units is a huge opportunity and one I think we should definitely pull the trigger on. With the roofing, when you drive that neighborhood, and my family walks it very often, the way that it's presented would fit perfectly with the neighborhood, so I love that aspect of it. My only concern, this has already been press released and mentioned with the mayor's office, and the wording makes it appear that it's a done deal. And, some verbiage of being held hostage was kind of brought up. When the neighborhood meeting was brought up, we were, hoping for a little more communication. And I just, in terms of other neighbors, have voiced concern that they feel this project is already done and they, kind of being held hostage in their neighborhood. Again, overwhelmingly in support of this project. I think it's a huge opportunity and we should push forward. But I think there's caution in how it's presented to neighbors that don't necessarily understand this process and that it's not already a done deal. So if there are neighbors still willing to and wanting to voice any of their concerns, I just don't want them to be shut down, having seen all of the news stories that have already picked up this project and making the verbiage appear. My only other minor thing that I brought up at the neighborhood meeting was the back fencing that goes to the housing. I just would like to see 8 feet rather than 6, and that's just because I also have a huge multifamily in my backyard, and those 2 feet make a huge difference just in privacy for a single family house neighboring. So those were my only, but again, overwhelmingly very excited to see this project in our neighborhood. I think it's going to do great things. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one that came forward, and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 12, consideration with possible action on request to establish a planned unit development at the 1100 block of East Walnut Street to permit a mixed-use office and multiple family residential development submitted by MF Housing Partners LLC applicant, City of Green Bay Redevelopment Authority property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We are recommending approval of the request for the planned unit development with 4 conditions. 1, the adoption of the draft PUD, a consolidation of the individual lots into a single lot, pedestrian access from North Roosevelt Street to the building's rear entrance be provided, and building entrances on East Walnut facade include a canopy or other roof element over the doorways and some type of lighting with approval of the Department of Community Development.
Can we do anything with screening as far as that 6-foot versus 8-foot fence?
Sure. I mean, you could increase the fencing height or decrease it. It's your purview. I know the petitioners are here though, so if you want to open the floor, you could probably inquire. That would be.
Motion to open the floor. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pradik, second by Commissioner Rubinski to open the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Can we briefly just comment on the fence?
Sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, you don't
Any
just say
comments
name
you
and
want?
address and
Okay.
and then you don't have to give a whole presentation or anything.
Oh, no worries. Hi, everybody. Jack Klister, MF Housing Partners, 229 East Washington Street in Appleton. Just briefly on the fence, we have looked at that, and we are putting more preference and importance on the opaque and material of the fence versus the height. We get that, that the 2 feet may make a difference. However, we have priced it out, and we are really trying to, in all facets of the project, keep it budget friendly to keep these rents as affordable as possible. So that's why we had that in as 6-foot opaque fence versus an 8-foot chain link or some lower quality fence. So, but if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So the fence, you won't be able to see through it?
Correct. It would be a vinyl material.
Okay.
So no car lights or no dogs being able to see,
But that-
residents, so.
But that wouldn't be the case with an 8-foot fence? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying the 6-foot versus 8-foot is strictly because of budgetary reasons. It's larger than you would think to just go 2 feet. So that's why.
I guess the other thing that I would comment, what we typically do as a planning staff when we look at site plans is, our 6 foot is the maximum height of fences typically in a residential area, but the combination of the fencing with the required landscaping, which is like one tree every 50 feet or 40 feet, I can't remember exactly, those become overstory and create a higher level of canopy that isn't solid because it's a vegetation, right? But it creates that canopy, and then you have the human scale, car headlight, noise, emissions, all that kind of stuff, blockage with that solid fence. So we try to do that in a combination. They do have a concept plan, landscape plan in your packet, but again, that would go through regular site plan review, and we're pretty confident that that combination will be successful in the neighborhood.
So there's going to be berms? There's not going to be berms?
No.
Okay.
No, the
Yeah,
berm,
this is a very flat area.
Yeah.
yeah, the berms and stuff are typically industrial and intense uses next to residential.
Do we have any more questions for the applicant? Oh, thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Motion to close the floor?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Praddick, second by Vice Chair Miller to close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Question for staff on the double parking. I'm sure it happens informally, but I'm not aware of any complexes that have that arrangement on there. In addition, I don't believe you can park on Walnut, right? Those are bike lanes out right there, and I'm not sure Roosevelt. So is there any concern in terms of like visitor parking, just where they'll go, that type of thing?
There was some concern, a little bit of concern and discussion about that. So Roosevelt has limited parking on it. On one side of Roosevelt, there's a lot of driveways. But there is parking on Roosevelt directly across from what would be the office portion of the development. But you're correct, there is no parking allowed on Walnut. And again, for residential uses on street is not that important because you can't park overnight.
Sure.
So yeah, the parking is slightly, I wouldn't say tight, but it is, they utilized a lot of the exceptions to make it an alternative transportation type place. But still, they're very, very close to the parking count, even if they didn't use the allowances given for bicycle parking and day and night. And that's only like about 5 spots, I believe.
I assumed it was gonna be pretty tight with that footprint, but no, that makes sense.
Yeah, and would we like some more parking, 1 1/4 per unit? Yes. And if this site was not so tight, we would try to get that as much as possible. Or, again, if we had parking lots around there where they could lease some spaces or something, that would be good as well.
Question for staff, just because it was raised in the open forum, about notifying the neighborhood associations and working with the neighbors, just to review that.
Yeah, so we had a neighborhood meeting 2-3 months ago. I can't remember the exact time we had the neighborhood meeting, and there was discussion from the neighborhood association and the developers. I thought the communication, from my memory, the communication was a lot about the final design of the building, some especially associated, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but associated around the art installation. So this project would also have an art element to it. That is not yet determined whether that's going to be part of a building material or a formal piece of art, traditional piece of art. I think the indications have been they're going to try to incorporate it into the building, possibly with using the roofing or railings or whatnot. And I think at that point, when they get to that stage of doing their final they can correct as well. Their final design where they're coming through before they submit for their building permits, they would probably go back out to the neighborhood association, but I think that Mr. Klister can probably agree or disagree with me there. I don't want to speak for you.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So they might not have had all the details
At the time, yeah, and that neighborhood meeting, like all the neighborhood meetings we have, is really a due diligence thing. So they did make some changes to their plan after the meeting based on discussions with the neighbors, which is how we want it to work,
Yes,
right?
yes, that's right. That's good to see, just to clarify.
I was trying to go there and I went to the wrong one. Sorry.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Pratt, second by Vice Chair Miller. Any further discussion?
To clarify with the as presented.
Oh,
with the
right, yeah.
contingencies. Staff.
All right, we'll go ahead with the voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and that will move forward then to City Council for March 7th. All right, item number 13. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information in this matter, and your comments or concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. We will now open the public hearing on item number 13, public hearing on request to create a text amendment to Chapter 44-1075, Floodplain Overlay District, submitted by Department of Community and Economic Development.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a follow-up to what was approved by this board back in October to the floodplain. DNR came back and said, hey, when it comes to your floodplain panels, update it to 2023. So these are just updates in your panels that note changes here for 2023. Simple as that.
Excellent. All right, is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward, and this public hearing is now closed. And moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 14, consideration with possible action to update Chapter 44-1075, Article 13 of the Green Bay Municipal Code, Floodplain Overlay District Ordinance, submitted by Community and Economic Development.
And we recommend approval of the updates of Article 13, subject to revisions by city attorney staff in case they want to change the order or anything there at all. So,
all right.
Yeah, not much to this one.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Craddock. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to informational. Director's report. Mr. Stickschulte.
Knowing that it is 8:39, I'm available for any questions anybody has.
I gotta hit you with one. I know there's only so much can be shared on what's going on with the Bay Lake City Center, but there's so many closed session meetings at RDA, just hoping to glean something out of it, and I never get anything there. It's just, I know that's no one's first choice, it's just like, I guess I don't have any question besides, is that really what we're gonna be going with there?
Well, just to give you a quick recap for other commissioners, essentially, there was a request to the RDA to, essentially for the condo association to acquire the northeast corner of the building, and then also for us to provide a 30-foot no-build easement on the parking lot side of the building. Short version is it appears both of those things, originally the intent around 2015, 2016, that was the intent to do those things, to the point where there was actually action taken by RDA at one point to do at least transfer the northeast corner. That did not ever get executed for some reason. We haven't been able to track down why there was no document that has never happened. So essentially, the condo association brought forward the request again in the context of they're looking at possibly one of the owners is looking at converting and adding about 72 residential units on the second floor of that existing structure. There's been lots of conversation, I think certainly from planning staff as well as RDA, calling for that original structure to not be there anymore.
Right.
Essentially, I think the authenticity plan actually calls for that building to go away. Essentially, but because now it's essentially, there's at least, I think there's at least 16 different owners in that building. I think there's a lot of things going on with it. It is actually built remarkably well for an old, large format retail space.
I worked at that Boston store in the 90s.
It's built remarkably well.
I'm not gonna lie, $4.95 an hour, man.
So
It's rolling in it.
So the current owners had a couple different ideas they tried to get in here. This is the latest. There's probably some concerns, I would say, arguably, against the project. And so really, again, it goes back to the conversation. Yes, we need housing units. We definitely need affordable units. I think probably the most controversial part of it is there'll be like there'll be an exterior series of apartments that will have new windows put in, would have direct light. There's a series of internal apartments essentially that would only have direct light through skylights into the hallway. Yeah, so it's an interesting model. It did meet code. So essentially, we don't have, there's not a building code issue directly with that project. It is allowed by the zoning, so we do not have a zoning issue on that either. RDA's position was to deny both of those requests because they had concerns with the project. So now there's certainly some interesting ramifications that we're still trying to figure out exactly what that's going to be now that that has happened. We believe the applicant has a way to proceed forward with that project to meet code without those two aspects. So I think now RDA just has to decide if they're still willing to maintain their position and if the project's going to move forward anyway. It could involve breaking in all the windows and doors on the parking lot side of that, essentially removing the access on that side of the building. We believe is one of the avenues that the current owner is considering at this time, which would not require any approval or difference from us, so it would meet code. Certainly, I think one of the things we were hoping for, if anything happened in that building, regardless of the use, there would actually be more windows and doors and maybe more activation.
Right.
So it's a difficult situation. I think they're just trying to figure out exactly what that's going to do. If the RDA ends up keeping that property, there are building code issues because it essentially is a separate parcel right next to each other that a building is essentially built across now. So it'll involve the installation of a party wall for fire code purposes, which could be really expensive, from what I understand. So we're trying to decide if that investment is worth it to maintain that little 1,700 square foot corner. And again, it seems like a lot of the decisions that were made back 5-6 years ago, that was the intent to do those things, but for some reason which we cannot find is why those things were never executed and moved forward on. So
that is where the church is, correct?
Correct. Yeah, Spring Lake Church is one of the key tenants in there, absolutely. Yes, sir.
And
Actually, and they're not a tenant, they're actually an owner. They're a condominium owner in that building, so they are actually one of the owners.
So they would stay? Or maybe?
Right now, absolutely. They were just, we think their understanding would be now, whether or not, if they proceed with there may need to be some relocation of access points and windows for that user. And in fact, that was the action that ends up going forward, So that's kind of a real convoluted answer.
That helps a little
Jacob, right? What's going on there?
I was just trying to figure out what the heck is going on with that.
Yeah.
Related question, the Adams Street lot is not actively being marketed right now, or is it just kind of open?
The RFP is technically still open, I guess, and that we would probably be looking at kind of taking a more aggressive approach. Mayor's kind of asked us to really get that out and try to get something going on that site. We do see, in a perfect world, if you could wave a magic wand, happen to us, we've talked a lot about trying to, tonight especially, talking about how to get future pieces that you don't necessarily control to go the way you want to go. Ideally, this would be, we'd get a really great, nice, high density, some elevation project on that Adams Street lot to the point where it generated enough increment that maybe there's an ability to acquire and do something else with that building. That would be
ideal.
Perfect scenario. I'm looking for my checkbook. I don't have it laid out. But that would probably be, I guess, the hope still at this point is that would still be possible. So,
Monroe?
Yeah, I was just going to ask about
Yeah.
Associated Bank.
200 North Monroe is absolutely, we've had recent conversations with the developer on it, which actually was Mr. Matthew
Gorman,
tonight.
right?
He's actually developing this one, he and his partner on his own. It's not technically a Gorman project, but he is still working with them. Essentially, they have, they're working through, attempting to get HUD financing right now. There seems to be a bureaucratic checkbox that was not made because the city acquired that lot, or the RDA acquired that lot prior to completing a phase one environmental analysis, which I believe we did because there was concerns that the county was going to acquire and just simply keep it as a surface lot. So I think we moved extra fast to get that done. We have since conducted a phase one and we know pretty comfortably what we're dealing with there. But HUD, essentially the process looking at there's some concerns with having that, that there could be unending groundwater contamination that has to be dewatered all the time. As underground parking is what's causing the main challenge with the environmental concerns at this point. So one is either we need to find probably some additional financing for Mr. Matcom to proceed, or we need to ask him to try to figure out how to get his parking out of the ground and try to get it up out of the ground and do something different with that. So we're kind of hoping, we really like the design on this one. This is not one that we're, just heck with it, throw it all away and start all over again. We didn't really like it anyway. Everybody really tends to like the design on this one. It's very, very neighborhood centric, starts off higher end on the more busy street, goes down, ratchets down in elevation as it goes into the residential areas behind it. It's a nice design, it's a great project, so we're really hoping that we can find a good solution on doing that. So right now, we're still proceeding with as if he will be moving forward, hopefully with some remediation activities this summer, and then possibly construction this fall. But there's some loose ends that need to be tied up to keep that on schedule.
So how did the remediation get started so quick on the WPS side?
Because WPS is doing it voluntarily on their own.
Oh.
So that's that's actually an EPA Superfund site too.
I saw that.
So, yeah, so it means it's even extra nasty in terms of the things they need to deal with contamination device.
I believe it, yeah.
So they're doing voluntary cleanup on those certain sections of the site.
Got it.
So,
Cool.
good questions.
Next meeting's March 13th, I
Yep,
believe.
date of next meeting, March 13th, 2023.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
That's gonna say.
Motion by Commissioner Fred, second by Vice Chair Miller, really pulling the teeth there. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned.
I could rip out the cards.